Good evening, everybody. I'm Bob Vaughan, and I'm a member of the Wren group, and I'm really presenting this on behalf of them. And I'll just go through what we're doing to attempt to save the dwindling Skylark numbers on Wanstead Flats, and then I'll talk a little bit about the Wren group because you might be interested. So this is Wanstead Flats in the autumn. Right, Wanstead Flats is at the southern end of Epping Forest, and Epping Forest is consists of about nearly 6,000 acres of ancient woodland, and it was a former royal forest. And basically, the royals would occasionally hunt there, but commoners were allowed to feed their animals, collect wood and pollard the trees and so on. So it was effectively common land, even though the royals used it for hunting. But gradually areas were fenced off. People that owned various areas fenced off areas, and commoners got squeezed out. And there were a few riots in the 1870s and so on. Depends what you call them. There were collections of people. And this led to the Epping Forest Act of 1878. And basically, Epping Forest is now owned, if you like, by the City of London Corporation. And they appoint conservators. And their job is to preserve at all times, keep the forest unenclosed and unbuilt on as an open space for the recreation and enjoyment of the people, which is great. And it's still as that is today, and that'll be relevant a bit later on. The Skylarks nest on Wanstead Flats have done for many, many years, as far as we know. It's a very open area, and this is important, and it's the closest site to the centre of London where Skylarks actually breed. So this is a sort of diagram of the area. This, in fact, is the Wanstead birding patch, if you like, that was set up by John O'Lethbridge and Nick Croft. And if you look, this is Wanstead Flats, and this area around here is actually Wanstead Heath, which is relevant to the talk that's coming next. The Skylarks breed in this open area here, and the area just to the south of Alexandra Lake called Pub Scrub. Skylarks nest on the ground, first of all, and they like to be away from trees. They will not nest near tall objects like telegraph poles, trees, hedges, and so on. So they tend to nest in these very open areas. Unfortunately, a lot of the flats are now sort of football pitches. So Western Flats is open, but football pitches, and it's football pitches here. So this is a Skylark, of course, and this is a picture of it resting on the ground on Wanstead Flats. This is what I'm talking about. You all know Skylarks, I'm sure. Skylark numbers have become a problem. The Wren group has been monitoring the numbers of Skylarks. It's quite difficult to do, unfortunately. The way we do it is we tend to count the singing males that are holding territory apparently in spring. And this is a sort of graph of the numbers. And you can see that starting 2012 through to 2020, there's a fairly steady decline. You could argue there's a plateau here. But the problem is this is just territorial males, and it doesn't tell us whether we've got breeding success. And it's often difficult to know this. What we do in the autumn is we have a walk through. A group of people will just sort of link up basically and go through, and we will attempt to flush Skylarks and count them. And there's about a dozen maybe that overwinter. If you're doing VisMig, you occasionally hear them migrating over. And it's quite interesting because the migrating Skylarks chirrup, and the Skylarks on the ground respond with a chirrup as well. So there is the possibility of some interaction with migrants perhaps coming from the north. But the problem is that in 2020, we couldn't get any evidence at all that the Skylarks have bred successfully. And this was a sort of a wake-up call. We had been discussing the possibilities of collaborating with the City of London to try and fence off areas to allow the skylarks to breed undisturbed. So the talks intensified at the end of 2020. I'd like to just talk about the possible reasons for the decline in skylark numbers. Certainly human pressure is a factor. It's an open area, it's open land, people can walk through if they wish. That's the whole point of it, of Epping Forest, as I've said. This was exacerbated during lockdown, I think, because people wanted to get out, and that may have contributed, but that's relatively recent. The real problem, I think, is the overfeeding. We have two ponds next to, well, Jubilee Pond is next to Forest Gate, and there's shops there, and they tend to dump their bred waste food on Jubilee Pond because they think that this is good for the wildlife because they get food. And I've seen literally a dozen Wonder Loaf just scattered over. And this leads to an abundance of rats, as you can imagine, and foxes and so on. So although they think they're doing some good for the ducks and geese that flock there, in fact, the disturbing thing is that there's plenty of rats, and these will disturb the nesting skylarks. Dog walkers, well, there are plenty of those. It's open land, so many of them walk their dogs, multiple dogs, often on long leads, just going through the open areas. Most of them stick to the paths, but some won't. And then, of course, there's fires. Climate change, I'm not so sure, but fires can be a significant factor. A fire swept through the SSSI, which is in fact now called Wanstead Heath, in 2018. There were over 100 firemen there attempting to put this massive fire out. It was devastating. It has grown back, but just over Centre Road here is the main Skylark area behind these trees, and embers and so on set a fire off on that side of the road as well, but the firemen were there to put it out, so it didn't get to the Skylark area, which was very fortunate. So, as I said, 2020, we had no breeding. We talked to the City of London, and they finally came round to our suggestion. They agreed to fund fencing and signage, which is great. As the Wren Group, we agreed to, should I say, police the fencing with a sort of Skylark patrol. So basically, every morning, they put it in late March, in 2021, and every morning from about 7 to about 10 o'clock there were two Wren members who would patrol the periphery, interact with the public, explain the reasons for the fencing, and generally try and sort of see how this encroachment on their freedom affected them. And the reception was absolutely brilliant from virtually everybody. Most dog walkers were very happy to hear the skylarks and stick to the rules, stick to the paths. They didn't have to go into the enclosed areas. There were a couple of very minor infringements, but it worked relatively well. The fencing was taken down in September, so it was only temporary. It's important that it is temporary, I think, from the point of view of the Act of 1878. Now, let's have a look at what I'm talking about. So, again, this is Wanstead Flats. The light blue enclosed areas are where the Skylark enclosures. It looks as though there are trees there, but in fact, these are sort of low bushes that you can see, and most of the area is wide open. There are two areas, but they did cover quite a significant amount of land because skylarks do need a bit of space. The signage was really quite good, I think. Let me show you the fencing first of all. It was wooden posts were driven in, and there was plastic netting put across, suspended from blue wires across the top. So this discouraged larger animals like dogs and people going into this Skylark area here. The signage was attached so that people could read it, and it just said, "Save our Skylarks, no access. This area is temporarily fenced to protect vulnerable ground nesting birds during the breeding season. Thank you for your help," and so on. And people were very good. This is the old signage, and that was moderately effective, but just not the same as the enclosed areas. Now, the question is, did it work? Early days, but in 2021, we had evidence of 3 young Skylarks in this area. So after 2020, where we were a bit worried, 2021 put us back more or less where we were before. And the main thing is that the whole thing was deemed a success by the City of London and by the public. And so it's going to continue, and we'll continue to monitor Skylarks on Wanstead Flats. So maybe the situation is sunny for our Skylarks, and hopefully they will continue to breed. I must say a little bit about the Wren Group, because this is their project in conjunction with the City of London. We're a wildlife conservation and monitoring group, and we've been going, it's our 50th anniversary this year. We're based on Wanstead Park and Flats, but other areas nearby. We organise field meetings for the families. We've had Zoom meetings on specialist subjects from a wide range of experts. And we have a website which details our activities. And I should point out that we're having a summer bio blitz. So we've got a series of walks and talks and so on for everybody, if you like. 25th of June on Wanstead Flats, 5:30, Centre Road car park. We're doing a sort of dawn chorusy sort of walk. Other bee, spider, bug walks from experts. 26th of June, we have Wanstead Park. We'll be doing a similar sort of thing. And the 3rd of July, we are going to Leighton Flats. So if any of you would like to come along, that would be great. Thank you for listening to me.